now, so I'm very concentrated on the presentation. If there are any questions, if there are very demanding, please put them in the chat room. I don't see the chat room, Kåre will see it. And other questions can probably wait till the end, and I can answer there some questions that you want to ask. That's no problem, of course. Yeah, what Kåre asked me was to do a little bit of a promotion of the VM6, because in August, at the end of August this year, I will teach a VM6 in Copenhagen. And at the same time, for the Dutch, I will teach one, I think, in November, October or November in Holland, also VM6. So that's why we also connect Kåre with Aniek and Aniek with Kåre. So also Dutch people could enter this webinar. It's not easy to make a new presentation, so it's a little bit of my VM6, sorry. And I go a little bit through all the slides. I make it a little bit more precise, more smaller, just to give you an idea what we will do in the VM6. And hopefully you become enthusiastic. I probably can give a little bit of my passion about this visceral work to you. And then at the end, of course, I hope that there is a promise that I will see you in August, or depending in which other country, but probably in Holland. Okay, so we'll start with the first slide. The VM6, of course, is the end of the visceral basic course. Finally, there are so many more courses now. When I started it, Kåre mentioned it. I'm teaching since 2000. I started with the visceral work in '96. At that moment, there were only 4 courses, and now I think there are at least about probably 20. Jean-Pierre is working a lot now with the brain course. I'm very honored that I am, together with Christophe and Ghislaine, may help him with that, to structure it, to bring it as simple as possible, and to educate it as possible for the students to learn. So that's amazing. Jean-Pierre thought about 1 course, brain course, but now at the end, probably for sure brain 2, but probably brain 3 or advanced brain. So there's so many things to do. But to come back, sorry, VM 1 till VM 4, so the abdominal area, the pelvis, and the thorax are more the physical part. We will see that later again. VM 5, for people who did that, is more the manual thermal diagnosis and a little bit introduction to work with the emotions. And the VM 6 is the one that is only working with the emotions, but we never forget the physical part. So also in the VM 6, we will do some techniques, some things to bring you back into the tissue, to bring you back into the structure. Life without emotions is not possible. We need our emotions. We need to use them. We need to communicate with our emotions, because they are reflect somewhere in the body, and they are usually dissipated through the whole body. The problem starts when they are stuck inside the body. And in a lot of times you see them stuck in or around the organs. And what you see in our manual therapy world, it's not easy to do a diagnosis and to treat the emotions. And what we think in the VM6 is that Jean-Pierre found the perfect way to do the diagnosis, but also to have possibilities to treat. And I will go a little bit through that, just to make you a little bit curious, and probably for other people who already did the VM6 to review it a little bit. Now, the polyvagal theory, that's in the red on the lower, on the bottom. Wait a second. Red. So on the lower part here, you see the polyvagal theory. That's interesting for us, because it helps us a lot to explain things to people. So we have now also in the visceral curriculum a special course from Eric Marlin. He's a French osteopath, and he is with manual techniques. He can reset this autonomic nervous system. So as you can see, there are a lot of possibilities. So it would be great if we are in the green one, because that's the social engagement. Then we have the calmness in connection, the groundness, the compassionate. So you are in contact with other people, and everything functions then properly. And the next step will be that there is a fight or flight. And there is most of the time there is something not safe anymore. And then you start to go in anger, irritation, anxiety, and you see a lot of fighting, and you will inside the body. It's a sympathetic reaction. And then the last step, that's a live threat. It means that the body will freeze. It's in a shutdown. You can also see it as dissociation. And it's so amazing because normally during the day, you go most of the time a little bit through all those phases and then also going back to all those phases. Because if you're in a meeting and someone is telling what's a little bit boring, you are thinking about your holiday, so you're a little bit in a freeze position. If the person say, "Hey, Mark, what are you doing? Are you sleeping?" I'm a little bit in sympathetic area. I'm fight flight because I a little bit in panic. What is he saying? So, and then slowly you go to the social engagement and you are again within the meeting. So normally you walk through all those phases during the day, during the moment in your life. What you see with people and what you see also very good with children and with babies especially is that they stay too long or too easy in one position. So what I see a lot is babies, they are in this fight-flight area, in the sympathetic nervous system, because those babies are always alert, they're always moving with arms and legs, etc., etc. So with the techniques that we learn in Visceral and with the techniques that I learned from the polyvagal course, I can work with that. It's not a miracle, but a lot of things you can do, of course. I was always doubting why I never got children, babies, from the freeze position. But if you think about it, it's rather logical because those children are more or less freeze, shut down. They sleep 20, 22, 23 hours a day. So they are very calm and very smooth babies. So not fighting, because you can see that very easy, but they are more in a shutdown position. Now slowly I see them more and more because they don't eat, and that's also part of that. You don't want to eat if you are in a hopelessness position, if you are in a shutdown, if you are in a winter sleep. I don't know if it's the proper English word, like the bears do. You don't want to eat. So that's also now part of that to reset the whole autonomic nervous system.
It's called hibernation.
Thank you very much. Hibernation. Thank you. That's not Danish, yeah? That's English, yeah?
Correct. English.
Thank you very much. Okay, so hibernation, and that's very easy also to explain that to the parents of this baby, and that explains a lot. That makes it also easier for the parents to understand it. So this is a sympathetic reaction, and as you can see, this lady that walks in the dark streets of New York at around 3 o'clock in the night. Why is she walking there? That's only for the picture and for us, for the webinar. But you can see that all the organs are involved. So the lungs, the heart, the intestines, the kidney, the eyes, everything, the brain is connected with this. Everything got a reaction of this walking in the streets. So be aware that emotions are not at one part in the body, but are working, have an effect on the whole body. So what you see in osteopathy, physical manipulation, is that emotions can stored in the body, and the trick is to find a way to diagnose it and to treat it. And that's what Jean-Pierre did. In English, in America, they always say Dr. Barral, but I think he's not a doctor. He's a physical therapist and an osteopath. But That doesn't matter. So that's what Jean-Pierre Barral found in experience and working with it, that he is find a way to touch it and to work with it. And that's why you see on the lower part is that, I will draw it because I like this picture. If you have here the emotions and here physical, and of course there are more things, but you see that most complaints that people have could be a lot physical, could be, or probably a lot emotional, but oh, sorry. But, wait. But in a lot of cases, it's more or less like a half emotion, half physical. So we will see later an example that sometimes you have to work with emotions, sometimes you have to work with the physical part. Most of the time in my office with patients, I work in the treatment session, I work with emotions and I work also physically. It's always a combination of that. There is no only emotion or only physical. Of course, there are exceptions, but as you can see, 99% of the cases, it's a combination of all things. So yes, be aware that sometimes you need to work with them both, or always you need to work with them. And what you can see is that, I made it already a little bit wider, that Barral found out that if this emotional energy is stored inside the body, then there is less energy available inside the body to adapt to current situations. So what you see, slowly by slowly, it will, the bucket will go over, and you find this drop. Oh, that's a strange dropper. Sorry, a drop falls over, and that gives complaints. So that's a little bit what's happening, that all those stuck emotional energy inside the body can slowly bring this water up, and slowly by slowly it will go over the edges and give all the signs and symptoms. So what we can do is we cannot erase these emotions, be clear about that. The only thing what we can do is to just let it mobilize the energy and make the bucket a little bit more empty, so the body is a little bit more in balance. Sometimes it makes it easier to look at it, to feel about it, so it makes all kinds of things a little bit easier. Again, we cannot, I repeat, we cannot erase the emotions. So what we do is we have to listen to the body of the patient and not to talk verbally with the patient. That's what Jean-Pierre always says to us, because the body, only the tissue knows. That's what Jean-Pierre always said. Our brain is less trustful than we think. A lot of things we forget, or we change it during time, or we don't make the connections. For example, if you have an appendectomy, and people have a side joint on the right side, pain and problems, probably a little bit in the buttock, a little bit on the back side of the leg. People don't make this connection between the appendicitis, between the scar and the SI joint. So please use your listening, but then the listening with your hands. Of course, the patient is allowed to talk, of course, but in a lot of cases, it's easier only to use your listening, and then after you did your diagnosis to talk with the patient, to tell him what you found, and then by itself, the case history comes on the top, and you can talk with the patients about that. And it's the idea is not to follow the symptoms, not to chase the symptoms, but just let them be and feel what the body wants from us. That's the main thing, because in a lot of times, a lot of cases, also with emotions, also with structural things, the body will show it by itself. And on the other hand, because we are osteopaths and we are manual, oh my God, should be in hand. We are manual therapists. People come with physical complaints towards us most of the time, not always, but most of the time. So what we will see during this course and what I will tell you is that we always start with a physical treatment. The body can adapt to us. The body can feel if we are if it's safe enough. And then slowly by slowly, the body will show you this emotional part too. And you can start working with that too. So to give you an example, how things interchange with each other. So for example, in this time, it's a little bit, it's a very good example, but for example, someone loses his job or her job and gives stomach pains. The brain receives this negative image, this message from the stomach, and this causes cramps inside the stomach, problems with food. And then the brain receives two other messages. I'm not good enough and I'm sick. Sick because of the cramps. I'm not good enough because she's fired. She don't have a job anymore. He or she, in this case, there's a lady there, so that's why we say her. Okay, so what we could do is when we do our whole evaluation protocol, I look at Jean-Pierre, he's rather young here. I think it's about 30 years ago. We do first our evaluation protocol. That means that we try to find the dominant restriction. And in this case, we found the dominant restriction in the organ itself, in the physical organ, in the physical, this case, the stomach itself. And by treating the stomach, we eliminate the conflict the person was processing, because the body shows us this physical part and not something else. Then if we release that, if we release with the stomach, then the brain will perceive a positive change, and the person free of pain has a better chance of solving the job loss problem, or probably go to another job, or see, I think, oh, probably I do some other courses and I will change. So it gives them a little bit more light, it's easier to look at it, and the organ will function again properly. On the other hand, when we do an evaluation protocol on this patient, it's for sure the same picture, but and we find dominant and dysfunction with the emotional impact of the brain, so the limbic system and the stomach connection, then we can waken up a little bit. So between the brain and in this case the stomach, and that will create a change in the tissue memory patterns. So it would wake up something, it will move some of this stuck emotion inside the stomach, and we can work with the pattern of social stresses now. So it's not that we change the whole life, we just want to move, to mobilize this stuck energy inside the stomach, and the connection, of course, with the brain and the limbic system, and we will see later also the insula. That's a very important part. And we'll talk about that later. So there are, so the same, in this case, the same case history, the same start with losing the job, has two different treating parts. So one pointed out directly to the physical area, and one pointed out to the emotional one. And of course, in a lot of cases, late cases, it's a combination. You have to work a little bit on the stomach, something wakes up, you work a little bit on the emotion, you go back to the stomach, and so on. So it's always a interchange, and you always follow the frequency, and the path that the body shows you. So during the treatment, you always listen and listen and listen. So important from this slide is that we always remember the basics. So that's why Jean-Pierre always say anatomy, anatomy, anatomy. We want to come back to the anatomy, because that's our basic. If we don't know anymore what's going on inside the body, come back to the basics, come back to the physical part, physical structures of the body itself. And if we are lost in the emotions, come back to the basic, come back to the structure. That's very, very important, because that's for sure what osteopaths, what we as physical therapists do. But also for the patient, it's easier to be safe, to trust, to be trusted, and then to work from that point on. Because if someone come in and immediately, without knowing me, spreading out all his emotions, that's also not totally okay, so to speak. So then I'm a little bit more, how you say that? I will pay more attention to what's going on and what's going to happen in that case. So always treat the physical listening first, because of the patient can then adapt. The body can feel safe, hopefully, and then slowly by slowly it shows more the emotion, more because the emotion is a little bit more intimate also for the body, and then slowly by slowly it can open itself. That's important, and that helps to work with the emotions. Then we have the VM5, and the VM5 is interesting because we have this manual thermal diagnosis, the MTD, and of course what we did was, is it hot or not? Some people feel this hotness, some people feel just the tension, the compression, the pressure. So it's not always hot, but that's the most easiest part to explain it. What's interesting about this way of doing a listening, it gives you a little bit of the possibility to feel the body in an ambush, because if you touch the body, sometimes the body can still guide you a little bit to the wrong direction. The patient can a little bit guide you to a different position. So that's why we can use this manual thermal diagnosis, 10 centimeters of the body, as I show you in this picture. So with the palm of the hand, and we just go over the body. We always move our hand, and then we can see what we can see on the top here. We can find different shapes, different intensity of projections on the body. And we will learn that, of course, in the VM5. In the VM6, we don't go a lot with all those different shapes. But for us, interesting in this course is this one with the fake boundaries. And most of the time, there are the big ones, because a big one with fake boundaries could mean that the whole organ is not functioning properly. So, for example, the liver or the whole small intestine. But it could also mean that there is some emotion involved. And of course, the small ones, in this case, number 5 here, could mean the ascending or descending colon. Here, number 3, the smaller one, could be, for example, the common bile duct. Number 1 here would be a sphincter, for example. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of what's going on inside the body. So to become a little bit more precise, so if there is a zones without a precise boundary, so a fake boundary, it could indicate a functional, functional visceral problem, that the whole organ is having a difficult to doing his job. For example, with the stomach, for example, with the liver, for example, with the kidney, because the whole kidney is not functioning properly. Then also it could indicate an emotional thermal zone. So it means that the organ responds to a stress or physiological behavioral origin. So, for example, anxiety, hypertension, spastic colon. So there are problems that the whole organ is involved. And so what you can see is that if you do a manual thermal diagnosis, that if it's a physical connection, you have your hand about 10 centimeters of the body, 10 centimeters, that when it's a physical restriction, the hand is attracted towards the body, and that's a physical one. If the hand is pushed away from the body, it's more an emotional one. It's more emotion. But both has these fake boundaries of this projection. So if you feel these fake boundaries, for one moment, stay still on top of that area and feel if your hand is attracted towards the body or is pushed away from the body. If it's pushed away, it's more emotional. If it's pulled down, attracted to the body, it's more a physical one. This is a nice picture. I borrowed it from René Assink, a colleague from Germany, a Dutch colleague who works and lives in Germany, and also teaching for the Barral Institute, also a lot in Denmark, so I think most people know him. It's a nice picture. So what we also do with minimal thermal diagnosis, not only on the whole body, but also on the left and the right frontal. So you can put your hand in front, 10 centimeters, and trying to feel if there's a connection, if you feel this projection on the left or the right frontal area. Now, if we start with the left frontal, as here on the top, you can see that it's more the social part, the family, social, professional part, associated with relationships, and very close connected with the hollow organs, like the stomach, like the duodenum, intestine, gallbladder, and also the plexus of the heart. This is a Dutch word, sorry. And then if you feel this projection on the right frontal area, that's the center of our deep self, it's more personal. You can see that here, it's more the personal part, and more to do who you really are deep inside and who you appear to be, connected with the, how I say that, with the, with the lung, the liver, pancreas, spleen, I will say to the closed organs, now the dense organs, close to that. It's not a law, because sometimes this social side is connected, for example, with the liver. It's not a law, but in most of the cases, when it's on the right side, you see more lung, liver, pancreas, etc. And on the left, with the social part, you see more stomach, duodenum, intestine. But again, don't be surprised if the body shows something else. Always follow the body. What I show you here is just what Jean-Pierre mostly found in his office, in his practice, in his experience. But that's not the law. Probably it's different in your patient. So don't be surprised by that, or be surprised probably. And sometimes there is in between those two frontal areas, you have a median frontal zone that express more rigidity or a well balanced with no doubt in life. You see that a lot with athletes who are probably, oh, my screen is moving, athletes who are, for example, going for the Olympics. That's a little bit hard now, but they have just one goal in life. They want to go to the Olympics. Then you can probably find this area in the middle, because they are well balanced with no doubt in life. There is nothing besides their goal to go to the Olympics. And so that's most of the time it's not possible to very easy to do something about that, because they are rather rigid. And if they have no complaints, please leave it, because if you want to work with that, they bring them out of balance, and it doesn't help a lot. So in a lot of cases, what you see is that the left side is, of course, communicating, arrow like this, with the right side. So they are changing, they are interchanging, they're communicating with each other. And slowly by slowly, if it becomes too much, it goes to the right parietal area. So what I say, so the right and left zones, they interact. And then if there are important physiological emotional events that have a big impact, significant impact, they are inscribed in the right frontal parietal zone. And Jean-Pierre found out that most of the time you feel this projection on the right side. And of course, for the people who are waking up now, the limbic system is of course in the middle, so it's on both sides, but the projection is most of the time on the right side. And in a lot of cases, we also feel this pull, this emotional pull to the right side. And that has a lot to do, and we will see that later a little bit more in detail, that has a lot to do with the insula, the insular cortex. And scientists now found out, Jean-Pierre always said it for years, but now people, scientists, Antonio Damasio, said that this insula, and also a lot of times also the amygdala and also the hippocampus are most of the time on the right side, a little bit wider, larger. So that's Jean-Pierre already found that in his experience, but now also scientists found it too. So this projection, we put our palm of our hand on this connection here, on this projection on the right side. But that's covering the whole limbic system. We should be very precise, and because the results are better when we are precise, and we are much. If we are precise, the results are much more than we believe. That's not only with the physical part, but also with the emotional. The more precise we can be with the emotions, the more precise the results will become, and the more effective it will become. And the main thing with emotions is to mobilize it, to let it flow, to dissipate it through the body. We cannot erase it. Those two cheetahs trying to erase this antelope, but we cannot erase the emotions in the body. We just can move it. We just can let it float. So this is a whole map. For the people who did theme 5, this whole map is there. So we have all those points. And of course, we have also those 2 points on the right and the left frontal. This is not the eye, but they are the left and the right frontal. So you can very easily, with manual thermal diagnosis, scan the body, find your way, find these different points, and distinguish if it's more emotional or it's more physical. We have it also on the back. Of course, we have this spinous process with the connection with the organs. We have a whole list of that. So to connect it. And again, this is a list that Jean-Pierre found. And in a lot of cases, you say, oh, Jean-Pierre is right. But sometimes, again, the body is the body. Everyone has his own body, so to speak, of course, but not everybody is the same. So T6 stomach could also be sometimes T7 or T5 probably stomach. So be aware of that. Don't let you point by this, or don't let this schedule make your boundaries. There is only one boundary, or there is no boundary, but the body of the patients make the boundary. That's help you to work with precision. These are the techniques that we use in the VM6. So what we will do is a general, of course, general listening, but also a general emotional listening. We will do the manual thermal diagnosis, what I told you before, attracted to the body and pushed away. And of course, we can also do a local emotional listening. So the local and the general emotional listening means that you are on the edge, of losing contact. So you put your hand on top, just like you do a normal general listening or a normal local listening, but then on the edge of losing contact. So you are in contact with the body, but on the edge. And then the body will show you, I will talk a little bit more in detail later, the body will show you this stored emotional energy, if it's there, of course. Then this is lining, fishing, and hooking. That's still that we already did that in the VM5. But of course, you can use that also in your office. It's not that what we did in the VM5 is not good enough. It's only what we do in VM6 is the best. No, it's just what feels the best for you to work with. The only thing is we want to move, we want to mobilize this energy. Sometimes you can use fishing and hooking. Sometimes you can use the arrowing, I'll show you. You can use the discharging and the storming, clouding, and spotting, screening, imaging, and also the non-verbal dialogue. Most time normally is also in the VM5 that we talk about that. So, and there is no superior technique of this. You can just use them mixing each other with different patients because you like more the arrowing, you can use that more, but sometimes it doesn't work. So you can use then the clouding of the screening. So be aware and become aware of all those different techniques. And the main thing is, again, just to discharge it. Again, we cannot erase it. It's not erasing. It is discharging. And discharging is a very nice word. In Dutch, it means ontladen, but it's discharge and then release. So if we if we see a patient in our office and you do your evaluation protocol, of course, so like with your evaluation procedure or evaluation protocol of whatever, if your organ is your dominant restriction, dysfunction is a structure, then of course you work physically on this structure. That could be an organ, that could be the fascia, and that could be a joint, whatever. Be precise and work with that. Sometimes you find this whole organ that is not functioning properly. So what we said before, think about that, this fake boundary, minimal thermal diagnosis, fake boundary, a little bit larger one, the whole organ is not working properly. You can work then, you can relate this to the motility. How is the motility of this organ? That's interesting. The motility is also an expression of the healing possibility of the body. So it's always good, what Jean-Pierre said, at the end of the session, check if the motility of the organ that you treated it is okay. If not, work with it to make it optimal as possible, because the body needs its motility, this inherent movement, to recover. Because then we know that the body has enough energy to recover by itself. So nature can do the rest. That's also what Andrew Taylor, still one of the first osteopaths, said. So, and if the whole organ, so it's, sorry, it's a functional problem, you can also pay attention, of course, to diet, allergens, infection or inflammations, or probably it's more reflexogenic. So that's important to relate that. And then sometimes you think, oh wow, it's an emotional relation. Sometimes it comes after this treatment of the physical part or after treatment of the functional part. You want to work with the emotional part. You can emit, you can receive, you can work with that. You can work locally on the organ. You can work from the frontal areas, frontal parietal areas with the limbic system. The goal is to open the pathways for emotions, just to let the emotion move, float through the body, to dissipate it. And you can see on with the circles here, is that everything, of course, everything is a connection. Everything is influence each other. With emotional techniques, it's always important as a therapist to be in a place of non-judgment, because we never know, we are not in the shoes, we are not standing in the shoes of a patient, so we don't know how the patient's life was. The only thing what we want to do is to be precise on this emotion. We don't want to judge, not always easy, don't want to judge, we just want to feel what the body shows us and to give that back to the patient. And always in a place of deep respect for the patient, for the body of the patient, because the body will always show you the way to work with it. It's not always working, but that's what we should do as manual therapists. And the interesting about the emotional work is that it's softer, it's lighter, it's like you are whispering to the energy. So that wakes up this tissue, that mobilizes this tissue, and that works perfectly. Sometimes after the treatment, the patient is a little bit lightheaded. So grounding helps. Most of the time I say, please walk a little bit outside before you step in your car, because just to let it to let it ground, to let it fall inside your body, to become a little bit more aware of the world. Sometimes you can just touch the food to make it a little bit more grounded. And then when I started this course, it's years ago, but the Message of the Body is still an actual book, but it's a little bit older now already, but it's a very nice book to read. I don't know if it's translated into Danish. I think it's only in English, Spanish, Dutch, but not in Danish. Kåre, am I right?
Yes, that's correct. We don't have it in Danish.
So you will translate it now?
No, sir.
Thank you. So then to speak a little bit more out the limbic system, because the limbic system is not for everyone the same. That's what I found out. Also in anatomy books, it's not always the same. So part of this limbic system is the hippocampus, for example, that stores conscious memories, and it helps the process of making a memory permanent inside. And hippocampus also gives a time to it, so it gives you a feeling of not a time, excuse me, the place, because it's like a GPS system. The amygdala, part also of the limbic system, stores unconscious non-verbal memories, a reaction of the inner known, but it's a lot of driven by fear. So people who have a lot of fear, the research shows that those amygdalas and most time also the hippocampus are a little bit larger than they should be. And what Jean-Pierre said is everything is stored in our unconscious mind, like genetics, fetal, vaccinations, infection, physical, emotional trauma, social trauma, pollution, and poor diet. And the brain passes information wherever it can, and the organs are an excellent receptacle. So it's very easy for the brain to put in this energy in the different organs, in the different parts of the body. So it's always a communication between the two. Of course, it's not only the brain that pushes into the organs, because it's a vice versa system. It's a balanced system. So be sure about that. Wait a second, I will try to. Hope it helps better. Not that I'm so pretty, but all those lines on my face are not perfect. So it's an up and down system, and also the thalamus is very important with that, because it's like it sends to the messages. It's a filter. It brings all the information from the body to the brain, and also from the brain to the body. Besides that, you have also the hypothalamus, controls the endocrine system, the autonomic nervous activity, the survival function, connected, of course, with the brainstem, and of course connected with the vagus nerve, and within the polyvagal theory, also connected with the cranial nerves, like the trigeminal and the facial one. Then the insular cortex, that's a little bit new. It's not new, of course, but it's what I said before. It's founded by Antonio Damasio. He has the first hypothesis about insular cortex. It's located in the sylvian fissure. That means that that's in, and you see that on the next picture. Wait a second. In the next picture, because it is in between the frontal and the parietal and the temporal lobes. You have to put them away with those clamps here, and then inside on the lateral part of the cerebrum you can find this. Inside you can find the insula, and the insula plays a number of functions for the proper functioning of the human body. It's because the insula that people are able to perceive pain. That's sometimes it's very helpful, because if you don't feel any pain, most of the time you don't live very long. So it's a very important one. Very important also of the insula is that people have the awareness about their own body and their own self. So you can feel something inside. That means that you have your insula functioning. Also, we're responsible for successful social relationships, fruitful connections with the limbic system of the brain. And without the help of the insula, humans are unable to perceive pain and feel joy and happiness. So rather interesting, rather important. And there is a big connection between the limbic system and the insula. So this is the picture I used. And the insula is dependent on the other region of the brain, has a strong connection with the limbic system. And they are magically connected with the limbic system. It's amazing connection that they have. And what Antonio Damasio found was that most of the time the right insula is the one who receives the more negative messages. Is also the one most of the time who is a little bit larger, just like the amygdala, just like the hippocampus. So that's what Jean-Pierre said. He said, oh, what I found a lot in my office, wait a second, is this right projection, this projection on the right side, the right frontal parietal area. And now Antonio Damasio and more scientists found it out that this right area found receives more the negative messages, the insula, amygdala, hippocampus. So that's something that Jean-Pierre already felt with his hands, and now is also confirmed with the scientists. And you will see in Jean-Pierre's brain 1 and also his brain 2 course that he has new ways to work with the emotions also, but more specific also connected with the hippocampus, the amygdala, and also for sure the insula. Never, never. That's very important, because what we do, we will work with the limbic system. We will put our hand on the frontal parietal area on the right side. But if the cranium is still stiff, if the corner suture, for example, is restricted, if the squamosa is restricted, or probably the whole meningeal system is restricted, first release that, always first work physically. If that's open, you can touch much easier and it costs less energy than to work with the emotions. So this is first, and then second is the emotion to work with. So first thing what we do, what we started in the VM6 is to work with the arrows. And Anand, you know probably from it's a cartoon, and he has a lot of arrows. You can see that on his head, for example, but also on his hand. And just I like this cartoon, and it's a nice picture for to show to work with the arrows. So first, what we do, the difference between local listening physically, there is always a limit. When local listening is more emotional, the limit is not so clear. There are more fake boundaries, what I showed you before. Within the emotional listening, you will using a much lighter touch on the edge of losing contact, on the limit of losing contact. And the lighter you are, the more emotional you feel, the more powerful you are working. So what we do a lot, what I see a lot in the course is that people are connected with the brain like this, what the normal thing is to work with the frontoparietal area. And what you see, if it doesn't work perfectly, what you should do is to move away to make a lighter touch. But in a lot of cases, what you see is people coming closer and closer, so they become more and more physically, and they're working less and less emotionally. So be sure that when you want to work more powerful, more emotional, that you are more coming to the edge of losing contact. The arrows, the emotional listening, it's a real disruption of the electromagnetic field. You don't find this with the physical listening. Physical listening is always a straight line, for example, to the corneal suture or to the meninge or optic nerve, whatever. But in the case of a disruption, it's more or less like a floating movement towards that point, and it doesn't stop at that level. And the turn of this arrow, so we want to feel an arrow on the head. I have nice pictures to that, but I like to draw also a little bit. So I will use another color. So I make this arrow, bloop. And this turn at this point in the middle, this is this disruption. And that means that this turn represents an energy of a memory. There is some emotional event happened at that point in your life. And it's the palm, it's not the fingers, it's the palm on top that has this connection of it. Wait a second. I can use another color. Black. So my palm of my hand is at this level, so to speak. I know so the palm of the hand, it's not the fingers, the palm of the hand is what I follow. And you want to be precise, don't want to be forced, and you follow this arrow. You follow this change of this arrow. Now we make it a little bit more easier, because in general you can feel this movement forward. So you have this skull again. And in the beginning you want to feel if it's more a movement forward. that means that the people reacts in extroversion. So it doesn't mean that the person is extroverted, but the body reacts in extroversion with expression, projection, action into the future. And if this arrow overtakes the line, I will show you later which line, then it means more in the future, more the maybe probably also the spirituality. If the arrow goes in the second picture down posterior direction, the body reacts more in introversion. It's not an introverted person because introversion can change. The person responds more inside himself with influence sometimes of the parents, education. That's why he is going inside, more interested in the past. And also you see that a lot of things that happened in his life, he will connect it with his past. So there's always something, for example, he had a car accident 20 years ago, and when there is a flu now, in nowadays, he said that's because of my trauma 20 years ago. So he's connected everything in the past, he lives in the past, he never lives in now or probably in the future to know what he wants to do. And again, if you go down, and I will show you later too, if you go below the 0 line, it means that there is something going on, or there was something going on in your fetal life, inside your, during birth, or probably inside the womb. So we did this a little bit more, we did this already in theme 5, but the general part, and now in theme 6, we make it more and more precise. So if the arrow goes to the right side, you can see it here very properly. Yeah? When it goes to the right side, it's more connected to the mother, genetics, the person you must meet in your life, more the social side. Try to know yourself, take your job seriously. And when it's going to the left side, it's more to do with your personal self. And what you pretend to be, what you want to be, try a lot of things, but more related to your social relational identity. That's it, sorry. And the right side is more connected with the mother and deep inside yourself. Sorry, I was a little bit confused. I don't hope you are confused too. So left is more the social, the right is more your self-identity. And in a lot of cases, what you see is that about 10% of the people that you found, it's more the left, so 90% is more on the right side. Also, again, on the right side. What Antonio Damasio and other scientists now found, more on the right side, you see more and more that the body shows the right side to work with. Now, this is the lines that I was talking about. So what we can do if we put our hand on top of this skull, so my thumb, my left, and my middle finger, my ring, and that's it. So on top. So my palm of my hand, my starting of my palm of the hand is the day of birth, so the 0 line. And here the coronary suture is then now. So if you are passing this line, it means more in the future. So some people are a lot worrying, thinking about the future, what's happening, what's going on, how is my job in the future, I don't know. So that could be future or spirituality, for example. But sometimes you can also feel that the line goes below this birth line, and that means that has to do with, of course, with birth itself, or probably with the life within the uterus. Now, so what we do with the treatment of the arrows is we don't force it. We always follow this arrow. Always, doesn't matter in which direction it goes. We follow. We stay in contact, and we want to. We have the intensity to work on the directions, the shape, and the speed. But we don't force it. So if the arrow goes to the left side, we don't force it to the right side. The only thing, somewhere in the back of my head, said I want it to the right side, but I follow it, and by itself, by following it, it comes to this position, because the body always wants to be in balance, always. That's something inside the body itself. So don't push the correction. Always be following the listening. Always follow and encourage the listening that the body shows you. And again, remember, the lighter you are, the more powerful you are when you work with emotions. And again, important is to be precise. probably the location is not perfect. No, sorry, it's different. It's sorry. You need precision. What we do with the physical part, we also do with the emotional part. So we are very, very precise. So sometimes your interpretation, we will speak about it later, because we'll go on to images and spontaneous images, and then it becomes easier to work with interpretation to make this wrong. But we are precise with our hands. Our hands are our most powerful tools that we can have to work with this area. Then we go to the frontal parietal area from the limbic system. Most of the time, what I said, 90%, it's on the right side. What we can do is to use, and of course it's not there, but we are trying to see that, to visualize it, to use a screen. And of course, the right side we have, and the left side. So the right side, the more personal side, the left side, more the social side. Most of the time it's the right side. And we put this screen, as you can see, on top of this frontal parietal zone, of this frontal parietal area. And of course it's on both sides, and our hand is on top of this area. So we have something, we need this screen, because we need the screen to let appear something on the screen. So of course there is no screen on the brain, there's no screen there, but what we use is something that looks like a screen, because we need something to help us to make it precise. So this is also a picture from Renee Assink. Thank you very much for letting me use it. So what we will see is that we start with this screen, and with the screening and imaging, and then clouding and spotting. And you can see the social part and the personal part. And a lot of times, 90%, 80 to 90%, it's on the right side. The screen is rather important, because if you feel the screen, and of course in the beginning it's probably the first time you feel the screen, or you see the screen, or you experience the screen, you don't know exactly, but you will see very, very quickly that it's so important to feel the proper screen. So this is more or less normal. For example, you see a screen, it's more like this, or a screen is like this, and I missed the whole left area. It's also important to work with the screen, because the screen is also life itself for the patient. So you need to work with the screen. And I'm not pushing, I'm only put my hand there, I follow the listening, I encourage on the edge of losing contact, and just somewhere in the back of my head I have the intention, it would be great if this screen is normal size with proper boundaries, so I can work with it. And then if the screen is there, the next thing is, can there be something appearing on the screen? And what could appear on the screen, if you have a screen like this, I will show you. So this is the screen, that for the beginning we say, hey, it seems that there is a spot on the screen, probably on the right, probably on the left side, probably in the middle, doesn't matter, but there is a spot, there is something appearing on the screen. And it's so funny, because in the beginning, people like you do now on this webinar think, what is he saying? No, if we are in the course and we are there, everyone sees something appearing. Some people see it very clear, some people less clear, but everyone can see this. It's amazing, it works properly. Then from this spot, from this shape, we are trying to see, we speak about clouds. And I will tell you later why clouds, but of course you can also use a spot or a shape, but it's easier to speak about clouds because the picture works better with the clouds. But of course it's not always a cloud, it's just something that's appearing there. And Pierre always say what you can feel, you can also see. So it's so nice to feel this and to let it appear on this screen. And this is a materialization of the memory of this emotional disturbance inside the body. So this spot or this shape or this cloud or something fake, whatever, it's a materialization of the memory. So you're working on the limbic system. We need something visual to work with. So we need some tools to work with, and we use this screen and something that's appearing on it to make it more and more precise, to make it more and more clear to work with. So, for example, if we have a white cloud in the middle, not a big problem, no problem at all. A gray cloud, so a gray cloud is a little bit more important, and a dark cloud is very important. And what in a lot of cases what you see, wait a second, is that if the dark cloud also is stuck, so it's not moving, no, this is not dark, this is red, but I will make it dark. So if we have a cloud like this, stuck, not moving, it's very important emotional event for the patient. So if there is a cloud like on the top, so it's like a little bit like this, so it's white and it's a little bit moving, not a big issue. The darker it becomes, the less mobile it is, the more important the emotional event. Now, so of course it can be on the right or on the left side, the same things that we all did before. The left side more the social part, the right side more the personal one. Most of the time you find the right side, 80–90%. If it's more on the top of the screen, so if it's more on this area, like here, I want to go to my red one again. I like red. If it's more on the top, it has more with the current stress, with ambitions. In the middle, like we have here, it's more that the person is in balance, not real stress. And when it's here, like spiky, it means that there is aggression. And it could be aggression from the person outside, or from probably that someone is beaten this person up, something like that. And that could also reflect most of the time ulcers or gallstones, frustration. Now, then we can work, of course, with the clouds. We can work with different parts. We can, of course, we will work with the details, the position, because if it's on the right corner, it would be great that at the end of the treatment that the cloud is in the middle and has a small movement forward. And light, of course, because a dark cloud, the worst scenario is a dark cloud on the corner that's not moving. That's important. And also what we can do here is what we did before. Wait a second. That, of course, this line is now the front of your screen, and this part is 0. This is birth. So if this is in the middle, it's about, if this is 50, then this is 25 years. So this important event happened around 25 years. This is, of course, a perfect cloud, but if you make it a little bit darker, then it means it's there, and probably it's even better. Wait a second. If this cloud is a little bit on the corner here, and then it's black. So not moving, black, 25 years, it happens. So what you say to your patients, you said, could it be possible that around 25, between 20 and 30, be a little bit fake about the precision? I think we can be very precise, but if you say 25 and the patient say no, and then you talk about it, and then he said, I think I was 24. So you were not right. I think it was 24, almost 25. So I think, oh, I'm rather clear, but the patient don't make this connection. That really doesn't matter. It's great, of course, for my own self-confidence, and also for the patient, for our interaction. But my hands, what I said before, my hands create the precision to work with the emotions. So it really doesn't matter, but of course it's always nice to be communicated out loud with the patient, and when there is a connection between them. So we can work with the position, we can work with the color, we can work with the shape, and we can work with the movement. So that's what we can do to work with the clouds. Okay. So then what we can do, we can connect the cloud with the body. We can connect the cloud with the organs. the organ that we found with our, for example, with our MTD, or with our local emotional listening, or with our general emotional listening. So we can connect the cloud that we found on the screen, this connection with the limbic system. We make an arrow, we make a connection between the hands and the body, for example, here to the liver. Okay, so you make this connection, what we already did with fishing and the hooking part in the VM5 course. We can do it also from the cloud, because sometimes you're working with the cloud, it's not working. You become lighter and lighter, it doesn't work. You can make this connection. You can make this connection energetically, you can make this connection emotionally. Sometimes you have to work physically on the liver, for example. If that is your target organ, you work physically first, and then you come back to the limbic system. You make this connection, and then you see this cloud becoming less and less dark, becoming more and more white, become more and more mobilizing, and you can feel this release also coming from the liver. And then you can also do this fishing and hooking part, and to make this connection between the liver, the emotional stored in the liver, and the emotional stored in the limbic system. So you can connect that. So that's perfect. Oh, I'm very, very enthusiastic. I'm working very hard. So you can connect that all. Very nice picture of sorry. Then we have the spontaneous images. So what will happen is that from this cloud that you found on this screen, of course we can work with that. The perfect thing about those clouds is that they are objective, because a cloud, if you see for example what we will do now, from this cloud you say, hey, look, with this cloud I can see a little bit of a face inside. Oh, look at that. Oh, I can see ears, and I can see an ear, and I can work, and oh look, it is a face of someone. So from this cloud it's very easy, slowly by slowly, to see this image coming. But when there's an image, it's less easy for the therapist to be in a non-judgmental state. If there is just a cloud, which is gray or black or white, it's easier to be objective. So that makes it sometimes less easy to work with. But of course, images are always great. Then, if you see this also from René Assink, that from the patient to the therapist, of course, there is an interaction between that. So if you come from conscious to conscious, you can have a verbal dialoguing. And from non-conscious on both sides, to connect it with the conscious mind, you need images. So that's why a lot of tennis players, they visualize what they want to do, because it brings it from the non-conscious to the conscious, this connection to help you to play better. And then from non-conscious to non-conscious, between the patient and the therapist, it's perfect. Our touch can help to connect both unconscious minds. Nice picture. And that's what I said. So it's a challenge. That's the problem. The challenge of the practitioner to help to interpret what the image may mean for the person. And that's not always easy, I can assure you that. So be also fake with explaining what you see. Make it a little bit wider. Don't start immediately with what you saw. Make it a little bit wider, a little bit fake, and then it's easier for the patient to address with it. And then the shape or image can be symbolic. Most of the time, the first one that appears is a symbolic one, and the second one, most of the time, is something real. That real exists. Sorry. Most of the time, of course, it's important for the person itself. So the second one and the first. Most of the time, they go very quickly after each other, very easy. And for example, a few things, not too much, like a building. You can sometimes you can see a building. It means that they're lonely, search for identity. If there are no windows, there's a lack of communication. If you see a wall, there's also no communication, probably failure. And fire always means danger. Also in this case, what I said before, Those are the things that Jean-Pierre found in his office on his patients in general. So probably in other cases, if you see fire, for some people, because some people are probably firemen and they found it amazing to work with fires. So sometimes this picture of the fire is not always bad. That's what I want to say. Now, what you can do, we work with this, we have this screen, you let appear a cloud on the screen, and from this screen, you can make a spontaneous between lines. The question is, it's still spontaneous if you want to see an image, but spontaneous image. And then, of course, you can also work with this spontaneous image. And you can work on this image to work with the part that's not normal, that's not logical, or probably a dark spot, or a big eye, or a big nose, or a big thing on side the nose, whatever. You work on what's not normal on this picture. And then I think this is the part that we already did in theme 5. We have this non-verbal dialoguing. Jean-Pierre now in the brain course also introduced again the verbal dialoguing. So he combined then the non and the verbal dialoguing to help the patient, to let the patient, for example, speak about the trauma, to speak about the accident, and at the same time you start to feel where this emotion brings you inside. With the non-verbal dialoguing, you put your hand again on the right frontal parietal area, and you can ask yes and no questions, and that should move in the direction. So your hand should move anterior direction of the, when there is a yes answer, your hand should move inside the body and a little bit of rotation. And if there is no answer, the hand doesn't move and even push you a little bit away. So sometimes your question is not precise. You have to re-ask it. You have to reframe it to make it properly. So what kind of questions? Who, where, when? I like to start with the age because I like to be in these energies. So we can ask the body, okay, of course you cannot ask when does it happen, but does this event happen 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Of course you need the age of the patient. And then from that point, it's easier to know if there's who is involved. It's a friend, it's a member of the family, or where was it? Is it inside, outside? It's in the country, or is it in a building? Is it in a car? What did happen? Was there fear, helpless, frustration, and on and on and on. And the amazing thing is that if you are in good contact with this energy, if you are in good contact with the patient, the question comes by itself. So you don't have to learn in your head 50,000 questions. Normally, when you're attached to this, when you're engaged to this in energy, the question comes by itself. And it helps you to make it more and more and more precise. So at the end, so what we will do in the theme 6 is we will work with the arrowing, with the arrows. We work with the cloud, with the screening and the imaging, but not the imaging itself, but the screen. That's where we start. Then we let something appear on the screen, the cloud and the spot. And then we can also connect that with the non-verbal dialoguing. The interpretation, the explanation, that's the part where we have to be very careful, that we don't push, that we don't interpret very easily. Because sometimes the color red means fire, but for other people it means love. So be aware what you are saying and try to keep it open and vague as in the beginning as possible. So let the patient hook in so it's easier to find the way. This was my presentation. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I will see you in August, and I hope there are a few questions. Kåre.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much, Mark, for your very interesting lecture.
Thank you. You almost there, Kåre?
Yes, I was there all the way along listening. Being reminded about things that I have not seen for a while, so it's good. So the chat is open for questions. Please give us some questions. If you have something, put it in the chat, perhaps.
I will watch also the chat. Oh, in Netherlands is in December. Thank you, Judith.
Yep. You are watching that, so it's a thank you. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mika.
Oh, this is a big one. Normally it's a little bit on the side, but oh, yeah, that's better. Are there any questions? Yelena still in the sauna? There are no questions?
No questions. Really? Everything was so clear?
Oh, that's not possible.
For me, you were very clear, but
Well,
could be something.
it seems, I hope you didn't, probably, oh, crystal clear. Ah, Gerard, thank you so much. Trying to sink in. Sorry, Michael. No. It's not in, the disc book is not yet in English. Sorry, it's only in French.
Okay, neurological shaking.
Yeah, I don't know what the neurological shaking is. Can you help me, Christian? Is that the proper pronunciation? Neurological shaking, what do you mean with that? You can probably unmute yourself, Christian, so it's easier probably to say it than to type it. Okay. Shaking depends a little bit how strong it is, but most of the time shaking means that the energy is moving inside the body. It's a way to mobilize this energy. It's a way to how you say that, or to make this energy, this emotional energy, more structural, and helps to mobilize it through the body. So it's not bad. Some people are very hard with that, but most of the time, most people lie still, but it's no problem. Just like the movement of the head, sometimes you have the hand on top and you feel this movement of the head, just follow this movement, because it's also the patient who is mobilizing this energy. It's a way to release this, to discharge this energy.
So he was meaning trauma releasing exercises, or
yeah,
the thoughts of Peter Levine.
Yeah, exactly. That works. I read the books. I cannot use it, but I read the books, how I know about it. So I did a little bit of the iliopsoas working with that. So I think it works very well. It helps a lot to get rid of this, to mobilize this energy that is stuck inside. Yeah, perfect. It works very well. Works very well. Yeah, for sure. TRA, yes. Other people, other questions?
Okay, so
SCB?
it's going to be a Strategic Crossroad 2 course?
No, Yelena, there is no SSTB 2 Crossroads. I don't know why it's SCB 1, because there is only one Strategic Crossroad course, and there is no other 2. Sorry, it's only SCB 1. And the new courses are Brain 1, 2, and 3, and the Advanced Trauma. But I don't know what you already did, but that's the new courses for the moment.
Okay, good. Sounds like, or it looks like there's no more questions for you, Mark. So then I will say thank you very much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that everybody else did. So of course, like Mark said, there is this class in August already to go in depth with these details that you described here in Copenhagen, but obviously also in December in Netherlands if you're more safe to travel then.
Exactly.
And I will tell you also that I have taped this session, so it's possible to see it on the Barral Institute Denmark YouTube channel in a week or so, if you want to repeat it. So for today, unless you have anything else to say, Mark, for us goodbye, I will, for my part, say thank you and have a very good night.
So for me also, thank you, Kåre, for giving me this platform, and thank you for all the Danish and also the Dutch people listen to me. I hope I was understandable in both languages. Most of the time I use English words. I don't speak English, but I hope it works. And I hope to see everyone live and kicking, so we can touch each other. That would be great, on a proper way, of course. Don't kill me exactly at the moment, but I hope to see you and probably August or December. Thank you very much, and
have a good night, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.